Today, we're diving into one of the biggest struggles every Fortnite player has, losing fights that they felt like they could have won. If you've ever tagged someone for 100, pushed in, and somehow still lost the fight, or if you've ever boxed up, panicked, and thrown away a winnable battle, then stick around. In this video, I'm breaking down exactly how to stop losing fights and start finishing every battle with confidence. We're going to cover everything from how to set up fights before they even start, how to apply the right kind of pressure, how to use advanced tactics like pre-placement and piece control, and even how to keep your mindset sharp so you don't panic when things get messy. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what you have to do in every stage of a fight, and if you stay with me until the end, I promise you'll walk away with a completely different perspective on how to win more battles. So let's get right into it. The very first key to never losing fights is getting entry damage. This is where fights are often won or lost before the real action even starts. If you can tag your opponent for a good chunk of health before they're even ready to fight, you've already stacked the odds in your favor. Think about it. If you hit them for 70 or 100 with an AR beam or even a sneaky shotgun shot, they immediately go into panic mode. They're now forced to either waste time healing up or boxing up while you're already in control. The players who win consistently are the ones who understand that awareness and timing before a fight matter just as much as mechanics during the fight. You should always be scanning the area, predicting where players will rotate, and waiting for the perfect opening to land the first shot. The difference between instantly shooting the second you see someone and actually lining up a clean, heavy opening beam is huge. That opening shot sets the tone for the entire fight, no matter what. And the better it is, the easier the rest of the fight becomes. Once you've landed that entry damage, the next step is applying constant pressure. This is where a lot of players either play too safe and let their opponent heal back up, or they go in way too wild and end up taking unnecessary damage. The sweet spot is controlled pressure. That means you're constantly forcing your opponent to make decisions they don't want to make, but you're not leaving yourself exposed to dumb counter shots. When you're pushing, you should be using your builds to close off their escape routes, placing walls and cones around them to shrink their safe zone until they have nowhere left to go. Timing your shots is also a huge part of this. If you can shoot right as they make an edit or try to place a wall, you'll almost always win that trade because players are the most vulnerable in those split-second moments. Even taking high ground doesn't mean just building to the sky. It means grabbing a layer or two above them and using it to apply non-stop pressure. The point is to keep them uncomfortable. The longer they feel like that they can't breathe, the more mistakes they'll make, and those mistakes are exactly what you capitalize on. Now, let's talk about something a lot of you guys don't know about or know how to use: pre-placing builds and setting up your fights. This is one of those advanced skills that most casual players never think about, but it's what separates the average fighter from the one who always seems to be a step ahead. The concept is simple but very powerful. Instead of reacting to what your opponent does, you're setting up the battlefield in advance. For example, if you're pushing someone who's boxed up, instead of just pickaxing their wall like everyone else would, you sneak a cone into their box. That one piece completely changes the fight because now no matter what edit they make, they have to play around your cone. It limits their options and makes them way predictable. Another scenario is when you already own a wall next to their box, pre-edit that wall into a corner or a window before the fight heats up. And when they eventually move into that space, you're already prepared with an instant shot. These are like the little things that give you a tactical advantage in these fights. You're not just fighting, you're setting traps, and eventually your opponent will walk right into them without even knowing. But none of this matters if you lose your composure the second something goes wrong in the fight. The mental side of fighting is probably the most underrated part of Fortnite, and I'm totally serious about this. But it's the reason pros can stay consistent while casual players throw fights they should have won. If you take big damage, most players immediately panic. They start spamming builds, mis-editing, or even running straight into their opponent's box like we've talked about above. That's the fastest way to lose. The best thing you can do in those moments is stay calm. Always assume you still have a chance. Even if you're down to 20 HP, all it takes is one smart edit or one clean shot to flip the fight back around. Think about the insane clutch clips you've seen. It's almost never because the player panicked. It's because they stay composed, waited for their moment, and turned the tables. Another mental trap is tunnel vision. Just because you hit someone for 120 doesn't mean you need to chase them through 3 different builds across half the zone. Sometimes the smartest play is to recognize that you already won that trade, secure the space you've taken, and wait for the next opening. Not every fight has to be finished instantly. The goal isn't to get a clip every time, the goal is to win consistently. Knowing when to disengage and when to re-engage is part of what makes you a complete fighter in Fortnite. Every fight can be broken down into small wins that eventually stack up into the overall victory. Getting the first tag is a big win. Claiming high ground is another win. Taking a wall or forcing them to waste mats is a huge win. The players who throw fights are the ones who win one of those small battles and then get greedy. They hit a big pump, but instead of boxing their opponent and locking in the advantage, they overcommit and eat a counter shot. The pros, on the other hand, know how to stack those small wins. If they tag someone hard, they instantly claim space and block exits. If they get high ground, they don't randomly drop down and give it up. They use it to keep pressure until their opponent breaks. Fights are a chain of advantages, and your job is to keep stacking them without giving them away. And before we get into some of the really advanced mechanics like right-hand peeks, bait edits, and some piece control, I want to quickly mention something that can give you a big edge outside of just mechanics. A lot of you ask me how I keep my game feeling so smooth, and honestly, the biggest difference came from using Risen's tweaks. It's a tool built specifically for Fortnite that helps boost your FPS, lowers your ping, reduces input delay, and just makes the game run way smoother overall. If you ever felt like your fights are harder than they should be because your game's stutters, your ping spikes, or your edits don't feel clean, this is what fixes that. I started using it and the difference was night and day. It helped me win my first duo FNCS trials game, and my game feels way more consistent, which means I can actually focus on outplaying my opponent instead of fighting my setup. If you're serious about improving and want that extra edge, check out Risen Tweaks. I'll leave a link in the description, and you can also use code FLOW at checkout for 15% off. Now, let's move into some of the advanced fighting concepts that really separate consistent winners from players who keep struggling in close battles. First of all, once you start mastering the basics, that's when advanced techniques come into play. Right-hand peeks are one of the strongest mechanics in Fortnite, if not the strongest, and if you're not using them, you're throwing away free damage and free wins. Every time you edit, set it up so your camera angle favors your right-hand peek. That way, you see your opponent and can shoot them before they can even get a clear look at you. Bait edits are another tool that works wonders against aggressive players. You can fake an edit, reset instantly, and watch how they react. If they swing early or overcommit, you punish them. Piece control ties all this together. This is the art of placing builds in the spots your opponent wants to use before they can. If you know they're going to ramp up, drop a cone over them. If you know they'll drop down, claim the floor before they get there. It's about predicting movement and shutting it down before it actually happens, so the fight always plays out on your terms. Audio is another underrated piece of information during fights. Pay close attention to sound cues like footsteps, reload, or healing items. If you hear a shield pop, that's your moment to crash in, because your opponent is locked in animation and can't fight back. If you hear them reloading, you know you have a half-second window where they can't shoot. Small details like this separate players who are just spamming from those who are really playing the fight with intention. But one of the hardest balances in Fortnite is learning the difference between being aggressive and being reckless, and I know you guys hear this a lot. Aggression is when you're dictating the fight, taking control of space, and forcing mistakes onto your opponent. Recklessness is when you're diving into their box without a plan and praying you hit a shot. If you ever feel like you're losing fights you should have won, chances are you weren't being calculated, you were being reckless. The best way to fix this is to always ask yourself before making a push, what happens if I miss this shot? If the answer is that you die instantly, then you probably shouldn't make that play. But if you've already stacked advantages, have health to trade, and control the space, then being aggressive makes sense. It's not about avoiding risk altogether, it's about taking smart risks that favor you. However, all of this is great in theory, but if you want these habits to stick, you need to actually train them. That means spending time in creative maps, specifically designed for practicing box fights, realistic fights, and piece control. Running 1v1s is another way to sharpen your skills, especially if you focus on one part of fighting each time. Maybe you spend an hour only practicing wall takes or only working on pre-placing cones. And don't forget to record your fights and watch them back. Most players hate reviewing their gameplay, but it's the fastest way to see the patterns in your mistakes. You'll notice things like pushing without entry damage, panicking after getting tagged, or wasting mats unnecessarily. Once you see it, you can definitely fix it. But at the end of the day, winning fights in Fortnite isn't about flashy edits or insane mechanics. It's about stacking small advantages, applying smart pressure, and keeping control from the start to finish. If you can master entry damage, pressure, pre-placement, and mental composure, you'll start winning way more fights and losing way fewer 50-50s. Even pros don't win every single fight, but what makes them great is their consistency. If you can win the majority of your fights, you'll find yourself surviving longer, racking up more eliminations, and setting yourself up for higher placements. So what I want you to do is take these concepts into creative, practice them until they're second nature, and then bring them into your real matches. Stick with it and you'll be shocked at how much more confident you feel in every single fight you face. If you found this guide helpful, make sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and comment what part of fighting you struggle with the most. I'll be making more deep dives on this topic soon, so don't miss out. And of course, don't forget to use code FLOWN in the Fortnite item shop to support the channel. It really helps out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you all. Peace, guys.